Effie. This is What Effie Reads, and in this video I'm going to be talking about all of the books and various things that I came home from YALC with. For those that aren't aware, YALC is the UK's Young Adult Literature Convention. It is a yearly Bookish event that takes place as part of the London Film and Comic Con. This year was my first time attending and I had an absolutely brilliant time. If you'd like a kind of just vibes video where I talk a little bit about my experience at YALC, please do go check out my Come to YALC with me video that I posted earlier in the week. But in this video, I'm just going to be giving you a rundown of all of the books I bought or received whilst at YALC, and also some bits and bobs that I picked up there, either free swag or things that caught my eye and I purchased. The first thing I will say is that I think before going down to YALC, I didn't fully appreciate just how much stuff you get. Like, you get a lot of promotional materials, but there also is a lot of opportunities to get books without having to pay for them. You also get the opportunity to get quite a lot of samplers. This is my stack of samplers. So first up we have the Penguin Game of Tropes rulebook. I think this is a really fun concept. From what I can tell, this is just a selection of samplers from Penguin, but I love the fact that it has been bound up to look like a book. I love that it's kind of thematic, and it also just has a lot of fun little bits about popular tropes. It's got a wee quiz in it, so it looks like quite fun basically. I've also got the Scholastic YA exclusive 2023 sampler. Quite excited about this because obviously we're only halfway through 2022, but very intrigued to see what is in this sampler. And it's very cute. It's a tiny little book, but I mean, what can I really say about these samplers beyond, like, I like how it's put together. Bloomsbury did their samplers a little bit differently. They did have 3 different samplers, I think, but I only managed to pick up 2. I'm not sure what happened with the third one, but we have Gwen and Art Are Not in Love by Lex Croucher, and we have She Is a Haunting by, I'm so sorry, this is a Vietnamese name, so I'm probably going to be completely butchering it, but I'm going to say Trang Than Tran. I will endeavour to try and look up how to more correctly pronounce this, but what I really like about these is that they have some comp titles. They also have like buzzwords or tropes that would kind of draw you in. I am particularly interested by this one as I read Build Your House Around My Body by Violet Coppersmith at the end of 2021 and was completely obsessed. I loved the Vietnamese folklore aspect and I wanted more of a similar kind of thing, but I couldn't find very much translated into English Vietnamese folklore inspired works, so this sounds like something that's going to be completely up my street, and the fact that it contains a sapphic romance as well makes me extra especially excited. This Lex Croucher one also quite intrigued by, as I believe that since Lex released their debut they have come out as non-binary, and I believe the queer aspects are going to be a lot more explicit in this book in terms of subtext, not spice, if that makes sense. So also pretty excited by this one. This is a sampler of Let's Chase the Stars by Matt Goodfellow. This author was actually signing them, so I've got this sampler. Ooh, where's the page? So I've actually got this sampler signed. This is a poetry collection that comes out in September. I don't read a lot of poetry, but I do like poetry, so I'm very excited to give this a bash. I've also got the Usborne 2023 YA sampler. This one's a lot more like a leaflet, so a lot shorter. But I don't know, Usborne is a publisher that I'm a little bit conflicted about, as they do have an MLM arm, but they do also publish some brilliant books. So I think I fall on the side of I want to support the authors, even though I don't support all of Usborne's business practices. The Bloomsbury at YALC 2022 is again a lot more like a leaflet, but it's got extracts, playlists, just generally a little bit of a snippet of all the things that Bloomsbury is doing at the moment. Del Rey are another one that has produced their samplers in leaflet form. They're also individual book samplers. So we've got Inkblood Sister Scribe by Emma Tors, I think. And I don't know very much about this, but this is quite a hefty sampler actually. And I believe this book comes out at the end of next year. No, sorry, this book comes out in July 2023. From the blurb on the back, it seems to be a magic system that is based around books that give people magical powers, and our protagonist is part of a legacy of keepers of these books to kind of protect them and keep them from coming into the hands of people that shouldn't really be using them. It is one of these where the protagonist is trying to escape her legacy and he kind of ends up following her. Then we've got The Golden Enclaves by Naomi Novik. This is the final book in the Scholomance. I haven't read the Scholomance yet, so probably won't be reading this sampler anytime soon. But you know, if you are excited to find out what happens next in the Scholomance, I'm sure this would be a very exciting thing to pick up. And the final one that I've got from Del Rey is A Study in Drowning by Ava Reed. This says that it comes out in September 2023. And on the back it says, if the monsters are real, so are the women who defeat them, which sounds pretty intriguing to me, I will admit. The next sample I got is Love in Winter Wonderland by Abiola Bello. This, I'm going to guess it takes place in London because, oh, I didn't even read the top line. Okay, what I was going to say is not the thing. I was going to say I thought it takes place in London because they have something called Winter Wonderland every year, I think. But actually, Wonderland is the name of a bookshop in this book. And this says it is a hopelessly romantic Christmas love story set in a Black-owned bookshop, which sounds absolutely lovely. I think it's Enemies to Lovers, which I don't know, like, I say I don't like, but I think it's usually because they try to say it's enemies to lovers when actually the characters aren't really enemies. So I don't like that. But I would never write a book off because it is enemies to lovers, but it's not one of my go-to tropes, if you know what I mean. Like, it's not a selling point for me, but it's also not gonna like stop me from picking up the book. And the fact that it takes place around a bookshop And I also have had some good experiences with winter-based books, specifically like Christmas time-based books. So it could be a sweet read. I mean, obviously this is a sampler, but it'll give me a good indication if this is a book that I want to keep my eye out in the winter. I think it comes out in November or October time. Oh, it's literally on the front. It says it comes out in November. From Little Tiger, we've got another one that's bound up like a book. It is absolutely stunning. It's got the colour scheme of Cynthia So's If You Still Recognise Me. And this just has 4 samples in. It's got a sample from If You Still Recognise Me, Ready or Not, Timber Dark, and Coming Up for Air. And I actually read this on the train back up to Aberdeen. I didn't read the sampler for Timber Dark as it's the sequel for Wranglestone, and I think it is one of those where you actually have to read the first book first. But the other 3, I liked the first 2. Coming Up for Air didn't really do it for me. Bit of an unlikable cast of characters. I was a little bit interested by the family dynamics and what's gone on there, but didn't really intrigue me. I think Ready or Not had me most intrigued, but If You Still Recognise Me read exactly as wholesome as I heard it was, so basically I would quite enjoy reading the full-length editions of both of those. From Penguin Random House, we have Nubia, The Awakening by Omar Epps and Clarence A. Haynes. I really enjoy Omar Epps as an author, so that alone has me quite intrigued. I also absolutely love that cover. I think that is stunning. And I don't know anything about it because there's nothing on the back. Let's see if there's something inside. Now, this does not have any information about what this book is, but one of the co-authors and the cover make me want to pick it up, especially because I like African-based fantasies. The Ballad of Never After is another sampler of the sequel to a book I haven't yet read. Not great. This I can't even remember what the first book is, but I got it in a book box last September, I think, maybe October, and I am interested in it, but I don't know because I've been told that I need to read the Caraval series first, or that it contains spoilers for the Caraval series, so I've kind of been putting it off. But again, I think this is one of those books, or one of those samplers that if you're excited for the sequel, you're going to be very excited to have this sampler. From taller books, I've got Making Trouble by Rachel Churcher. This is a 5-chapter sampler, and the way that it was sold to me, it was quite amusing really, because it's basically set in a post-pandemic world with a dysfunctional government, and the people at the stand, I'm not sure if one of them was in fact the author or not, but they very much took it in stride, realizing that actually that's exactly what we're living through. I mean, I'm sure this isn't a book that is for everyone because it does sound very similar to what we are living through, but it's definitely something that I would give a try because I do like a dystopia, or at least I used to. I read a lot more broadly now, but dystopia used to be one of my go-tos. Happy Head by Josh Silver. This is a sampler from Rock the Boat, of a book that's coming out in 2023. A young man is invited to come along to a retreat which has the aim of basically trying to cure the epidemic of teenage unhappiness, but everything is not quite as it seems. Again, this sounds like something that would very much appeal to me, and the fact that I have the sampler means that I'll be able to give it a try and see if it is actually something that I'm going to want to pick up when it comes out next year. And the final sampler I've got is Don't Doubt the Rainbow by Anthony Kessel. This is from Crown House Publishing, and it follows a young girl called Eddie who finds a note in her coat pocket from her mother, who is now dead, basically giving her some clues as to why her mother might have died, and this story follows her trying to unravel those clues and get some answers. So I feel like I got quite a wide variety of samplers, and it's definitely probably going to give me a lot more books that I'm going to want to add to my TBR, because there's a lot of things that I'm like, ooh, very intrigued. But I like that I will have these samplers because it will give me an opportunity to get a flavour for these books and see if they are for me before picking them up and like officially adding them to my TBR. And now, should we get into the books that I received, like either through giveaways or whatever, or should we get into the ones that I actually purchased? Should we do the purchases? Yeah, let's. First up, we have Orange Volume 1 by Ichigo Takano. This is a manga that I've heard so much about recently. This is a sci-fi romance where our protagonist receives a note from her future self telling her to watch over the new transfer student and that something terrible is going to happen to him. It feels like everyone has been reading this recently and everyone's been loving it. And basically, I want to know what all the hype is about, and I do quite enjoy manga, so I just had to pick it up. This is distributed in the UK by Macmillan, and they had a very dangerous thing where they had 3 for 2 on manga, so obviously I had to pick it up. Must Do Better by Kate Weston. This is the sequel to Diary of a Confused Feminist. I read an arc of Diary of a Confused Feminist a couple of years back. Well, obviously it was an arc, so I read it before it came out. I had kind of mixed feelings about it in terms of I thought it was a really good book, but possibly aimed towards a younger audience than me, which is absolutely fine because at the end of the day, it is aimed towards a younger audience than me. But I do remember thinking it raised some very interesting points and was well written. And I thought I owed it to the author to buy the sequel because if I wanted to get my arc signed, it would probably be polite to buy the sequel as well. So that's what I did. And I will be reading it. I will probably reread Diary of a Confused Feminist first. But I am intrigued to pick this up. I don't know if, again, this will read quite young. The blurb does imply it's going to feel quite young. But I also do appreciate the feminist discussion within it. Beasts of Ruin by Ayana Gray. This is the sequel to Beasts of Prey. When I read the first chapter of Beasts of Prey, I immediately knew that it was going to be a book that I was going to love. So I figured, why not get the sequel whilst I was down? This is going to be a trilogy, so I may hold off until book 3 is out into the world and then read the whole trilogy in one go. But I am very excited by it, and the other reason that I wanted to pick it up is I didn't realise that they were actually going to be publishing a cover that matches book 1, because I know there has been a cover change and I fully respect why there has been a cover change. But I thought I was going to have a mismatch book 1 and 2. I mean, I'm not too bothered about mismatch books now. I used to care a lot, and now I'm just like, whatever editions I can get, I will get. But it is always a nice bonus when you can get a matching cover. The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. I very recently read this and absolutely loved it. I mean, it is one of those books that everyone says that you're going to love, and it did not disappoint. It was sapphic, it had other queer characters throughout, it had dragons, and it had giant mongooses that talked and were just absolutely adorable and just absolute cinnamon rolls. And I love it so much. And you know, I wanted to meet Samantha Shannon and get a signed copy, so I needed to buy the book. It occurs to me that I've probably not really blurbed these books that I picked up. The next book was a mystery. So this publisher stand had this really cool idea where they had books completely wrapped up in wrapping paper. You didn't know what you were purchasing until after you purchased it. And I ended up getting Love is for Losers by Wibke Bruggeman. I'm not 100% sure. I don't think I've heard of this book, but the blurb says Phoebe Davis has opinions, most of all that love is for losers. But then she meets Emma and now she doesn't know what to think. That makes me think it's going to be queer. I really hope it is based on that. And yeah, I don't know. Like, I haven't heard of it before. But I love that cat that's on the balloon, and it could be a good light-hearted read, hopefully. Toxic by Natasha Devon. This was completely impulsively. I was just walking around the YALC floor and I saw Natasha Devon was sitting at the publisher table, and I just decided on the spot to pick up a copy of the book and get it signed and dedicated there and then. I wasn't really familiar with Natasha Devon. However, she did appear on Juno Dawson's podcast, so I got to thinking, and I just kind of was absolutely obsessed with her. And why not pick up a book by someone that sounded like she was going to be really interesting? Oh, also, Natasha Devon, I believe, is bisexual. I think that's how she defines herself. So I have high hopes that this is also going to be queer. But you know, if it's not, that's fair enough. Like, queer people do not need to write queerness into their books. The second of the 3 mangas that I picked up was Swear You'll Never Tell. This is about 5 high school students that all have secrets. It doesn't really tell me too much more about the story, but it's from the same author as I Want to Eat Your Pancreas and I Had That Same Dream Again, which I think I've vaguely heard of I Want to Eat Your Pancreas, and it looks like it could be quite cute. And manga is always like easy to read, and I found my stickers. Sorry, that was really random. So I will have a section at the end of the video where I go through like some of my favourite swag that I picked up whilst at YALC, but I was going through all my things earlier and I knew that I'd picked up some Monk and Robot stickers, but I could not find them. I went through every single book in case I'd slipped them in, and it turns out I had slipped them in a book, but somehow didn't find them in this book. I think because I didn't slip them like between the cover and the first page. I slipped them a little bit in. Anyway, these are my Monk and Robot stickers. How absolutely adorable are they? I love them. This was another kind of impulsive book. I was walking around the Comic-Con floor and I saw a stall that had a non-binary flag, and immediately I was like, need to check it out. So I had a nosy at all the books, and this was the one that appealed to me the most. It's called Fist of Justice, and it is by a Zachary Coleman, and it says, what if superheroes really existed? What if the people in the real world who stand and fight for what they believe in suddenly had powers they've never imagined possessing? What if a civil rights protester had superpowers, or an environmentalist, or a feminist? How about a pro-lifer, a neo-Nazi, a white nationalist? We all like to think that if we got superpowers, we'd use them to do good. But do we all agree on what doing good means? Fist of Justice is a real-world superhero novel written by Zachary Coleman, exploring the possibility of a world where political activists and social justice warriors find themselves with the power to instigate change, and asks the question, in the real world, who are the heroes and who are the villains? Like, this sounds absolutely amazing. I think it's going to be a really difficult one because I just had a flick through to check about the author. There isn't an author bio in it, but there is a content warning. And it's a very well thought out content warning. It says, although this is a fantasy book in the superhero genre, it deals with real world themes. As a result, some of the content may be upsetting to some readers. This book contains references to sexual assault, racism, Islamophobia, homophobia, transphobia, and the murder of innocent people of colour by the police. It is my belief that this book should not be read by anyone below the age of 15. Proceed with caution if you are sensitive to any of these topics. I love that it's got a content warning. It sounds utterly incredible. It sounds really thought-provoking. And yeah, I'm happy to pick it up, and also it being an indie author, even better. Nate Plus One by Kevin Van Wy. I didn't need to know anything about this book when I picked it up because this is the same author as Date Me Bryson Keller. I know that book was criticised when it first came out because Date Me Bryson Keller is heavily inspired by 7 Days, which is a manga that I actually have on my shelves behind me. I'm not sure if it's in frame or if it's on one of the higher shelves, but having read both of them, I can see the similarities, but I can also see the differences and the way that Kevin Van Wy really made it his own. And I also think is very interesting as well because I read an advanced copy of Date Me Bryson Keller, and even in an advanced copy, Van Wy acknowledged that it was inspired by 7 Days. So I'm not quite sure why people were saying that he never credited the original, because even in an advanced copy there was that. Anyway, I loved it. I wanted more from the author, so when I saw this, I decided to pick it up. And let's read the blurb together. It says, 2 boys, 2 bands, 2 worlds colliding. Nate Hargreaves, stage shy singer-songwriter, is totally stoked for his cousin's wedding in South Africa. An all-expenses-paid trip of a lifetime. Until he finds out his sleazeball ex-boyfriend is also on the guest list. Jai Patel, hot as hell high school rock god, has troubles too. His band's lead singer has quit just weeks before the gig that was meant to be their big break. When Nate saves the day by agreeing to sing with Jai's band, Jai volunteers to be Nate's plus one to the wedding. And the stage is set for a summer of music, self-discovery, and simmering romantic tension. What could go wrong? Oh my gosh, it's a fake dating! Oh, be still my heart. I love fake dating. Oh, I'm so excited to pick this up. And I think it's only like 250 pages. I think this might be my next book that I read. I want to say we're almost at the bottom of the pile, but we do still have 3 books to go. Bad Things Happen by Rebecca Barrow. This is another book that I picked up not knowing much about it. But the reason I picked this up is because my bestie, Shannon, who is always linked in the description, please go check out her channel. She puts out amazing content and I just love her to pieces. She asked me to pick up a copy of this for her at YALC. Basically, she wasn't able to attend YALC this year. So I said, okay, give me a list of all the authors you want me to see, any books you want to pick up. Basically, give me a shopping list and I will be you for anything that you want done. And this was on her list. So if it's something she wants to pick up, I decided I wanted to pick up as well. So I picked up 2 copies, one for her, one for me. The 2 of them are pretty much like this, by Takeshi Ikeda. I think this is a sapphic manga about a well-established couple. Oh, it's about a couple that have been living together for the past year, but no one realizes that they're a couple. I'm not sure. It sounds like it's going to be pretty wholesome, and obviously it's going to be sapphic, so sign me up. And the final book that I bought, which, I mean, I have to be honest, I feel like I've been relatively restrained, to be honest, if this is all I bought. I mean, I will be perfectly honest, I did pick up a few books as gifts, but like, since they're not going on my shelves, I figure they're not going in my haul. But the final book that I paid for is What's the Tea by Juno Dawson. This was one of the books that I went down there and when this is the book I 100% need to get signed by Juno, because this meant so much to me. This was kind of the final puzzle piece that helped me accept that I was non-binary. I had been questioning and considering for a while, but reading this was kind of the final bit on my journey that went, yeah, this is me, this is who I am. So obviously I had to pick up a copy and get Juno to sign it. And now should we move on to the books that I received? So first up we have House of Shells by Efua Traore. I'm so sorry. I'm so bad for not looking up authors' names in advance. So this is a book that I think it came out fairly recently, but it is already out. Chicken House did this really cute thing where they had a Halloween party on the Saturday afternoon, and one of the things was they had these balloons with trick or treating, and if you got a treat you could pick a book from their stall for completely free. So I had to look through all the books on their stall and this was the one that appealed to me the most. The blurb says, Cuckoo refuses to believe the curse of her Abiku. Her destiny is not to die young. Her biggest problem right now is moving house and fitting in at her new school. One evening, while exploring, Cuckoo spies a driveway lined with giant palm trees. It leads to an abandoned beach house of shadows and scattered seashells, and in the fading light she meets a girl called Enelo. They become friends, the best of friends, until Cuckoo meets a terrifying discovery. This sounds utterly amazing and I really want to pick it up right away, to be honest. And I'm not sure if this is adult or not adult. I'm not sure if this is YA or middle grade, but it feels quite short and the font is relatively large. Also, random point, but it has French flaps and I'm obsessed. Next up, we've got Frances Harjinder. Next up, we've got Frances Harjinder. I can't say her surname, but we've got this book, Unraveller. It is set in a world where anyone can create life-altering curses, but only one person has the ability to unravel them. And then one day he himself is cursed and he must work to try and unravel it before it has massive consequences. This book is coming out at the start of September, and Macmillan had this kind of fun spinny wheel to see if you got an arc of it. This next book is the one arc that I went down to YALC desperate to get my hands on, and it is With Fire in Their Blood by Kat Delacour. This comes out in September, the 1st of September in fact, and I just think this cover is utterly gorgeous. It has been described as being for fans of V. Schwab, and it contains witchy mafia clans and chaotic bisexuals. What more do you need to know about this? Also, just a minor point, but I absolutely love that because arcs are printed in small batches, they're almost always floppy, and it just makes my heart so happy. A Game of Life or Death by Trina Campbell. This is from Scholastic and it comes out in February 2023. In this book, we're following 16-year-old Asha as she infiltrates a tech company in order to try and get answers for her sister's death, and finds out they are discovering an app that could be very dangerous along the way. I Must Betray You by Ruta Sepeti. This is based on true life events and it follows a young man who is blackmailed by the secret police, and he's put in this terrible position where he can choose to save his grandfather by informing on the rest of his family, or he can put everyone at risk and resist. It sounds really interesting, and this is an author that I have been wanting to pick up something from for a while now. They are very highly spoken of, and this was quite a fun one. So for this, you had to crack the code, and it was kind of like, oh, we played these games when I was a kid, but I can't remember like what they were called or where. But it's a little bit like a Wordle, but with numbers. Wicked As You Wish by Rincha Paco. This is actually an old arc. This book came out in March 2020, but it was one of these where if you bought a certain number of books or bought something from the publisher, you were able to pick from the selection of arcs that they had. And Rincha Paco is an author that I really enjoy. Although, very strangely, I have read 3 books from Rincha Paco in 3 different series. So I'm not sure if this is a standalone or also the start of a series, but I mean, since it's what I do, I might as well read another Rincha Paco and potentially start another Rincha Paco series. I do really love this author's work though, so I'm very excited to get cracking into it. The Last Girl by Goldie Moldavsky. This book is from Electric Monkey. It is their 10th birthday this year. So what they asked attendees of YALC to do was write a message for their birthday wall, and then every day they would pick a number of those people to get a goodie bag, and inside the goodie bag was a book from their stand and a few kind of items related to it themed around that. So I got this book, and I actually haven't read what it's about yet. It says, when it comes to horror movies, the rules are clear. Avoid abandoned buildings, warehouses and cabins. Stay together, don't split up, not even to check something out. If there's a murder on the loose, do not make out with anyone. New girl Rachel Therese turns to horror movies for comfort, preferring them to the rich kids of her fancy New York high school. But then Rachel is recruited by the Mary Shelley Club and its terrifying fear tests. Elaborate pranks inspired by urban legends and horror movies. What starts out as fun soon turns deadly as Rachel's past catches up with her, and this is one game she can't afford to lose. Okay, that sounds absolutely amazing, actually. And I also think that Shannon would really love this. If she doesn't already have it, I think she would want to pick it up as well, because she is a massive fan of thrillers. The Agency for Scandal by Laura Wood. This is from Scholastic. In fact, Scholastic had 3 different arcs that you could win, and I managed to get the full set. I managed to get all 3 arcs. It says, a secret detective agency of bright young women righting wrongs in 19th century London, infiltrating a scandalous Bridgerton-style high society and using their wit and bravery to unmask a villain. A page-turning mystery, a heart-stopping romance, and a collective of bold women changing their world. That sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. I do quite like books set in that particular period. I think it can go really cheesy, but there's definitely a lot of potential with that period. And I like the idea of them trying to uncover murder and scandal. Did it say murder? I don't know if it did, actually. No, it didn't say murder, but I like when it's people that aren't the police acting as detectives. Like, I really like the Raven, Simpson and Fisher series. I kind of had mixed feelings about The Hangman's Daughter, but I appreciated what it was doing, so it's definitely one that, well, I mean, they're all ones I want to read. I want to pick them up if they weren't books I wanted to read. But I think it has a lot of potential, and this book comes out in January 2023. This book, Kills by Ravenna Guron. Oh my gosh, the fact that when I read this blurb, I went, I wanted to write something like that. I need to read this immediately. Basically, someone writes a story that involves someone being murdered, and then someone carries out the murder exactly as it happens in the story. I think the way that this is different from the concept I had for my own story is that the person who wrote the story originally is potentially the next victim of this murderer, and they have to kind of uncover who did it before they get murdered. Honestly, very intrigued by it. And this is from Usborne, and it comes out on the 5th of January next year. I don't know why I thought it came out next March, but 5th of January. The Nicest Girl by Sophie Jo. This comes out on the 4th of August, and it is from UClan Publishing. We are following a nice girl who doesn't know how to say no. She is the go-to person whenever anyone needs help with anything, and she will always lend a hand. But she decides that that's not who she wants to be anymore, and she's going to do something about it. I feel like it's really hard to kind of get a grip on what this book's really going to be about, if it's going to be heavy, if it's going to be light. But I definitely think it's a concept that has a lot of potential. It just will be interesting to see where it goes with it. We are very, very close to being at the bottom of the pile now. Just a few more books to go. The Elemental Detectives by Patrice Lawrence. When's this out? This comes out in September of this year. And it is set in a world where you've got a whole heap of magical creatures who are linked to different elements, but then a kind of sleeping sickness starts affecting the regular humans, and these 2 characters have to work together to try and figure out what's going on and put things into balance. I started this on my train back up to Aberdeen. I don't know if you can see, but I've got that far through the book, I think. Yeah, I've got about that far through the book. I am finding it really interesting. It is a little bit difficult to come to grips with the different magical creatures and the elements that they're related to, but I am quite drawn into the story and it is keeping me invested and intrigued. The Ripper of Whitechapel by Yvette Fielding. I can't really tell from the blurb whether this takes place in Victorian England or if it's set in present day. However, we've got the ghosts of some children that begin haunting a school, and these two trainee ghost hunters have to try and investigate. And as they start to investigate, they wonder if these two children could in fact be victims of Jack the Ripper. I think this has a really fascinating concept. I do not like this cover at all. I think this cover is really, like, if this book is as interesting as I feel like it's going to be, I feel like this cover is just not doing justice to the story at all. Maybe it's the font actually, because the more I look at that, I really like that. Oh my gosh, there's so many elements to this cover that I didn't notice. So yeah, I think it's that I don't like these fonts. But I do think this concept is absolutely fascinating. And it'll be interesting to see how much it scandalizes Jack the Ripper, because I feel like there's been this almost revolution recently where the focus is less on Jack the Ripper and more on his victims. So, I mean, honestly, I'm very interested to pick up this book, but this cover is not it. And the final book that I came home from YALC with is The Haunting of Tyrese Walker. I absolutely love this cover. I think it's fantastic. It is very similar to the cover of Jake Livingston, but this is by a different author. However, this book is from the same publisher, which is Anderson Press. So I'm not really surprised that it's a similar cover. And it's clever marketing as well, because I feel like Jake Livingston did quite well. So having a cover that's kind of similar is going to draw people in, especially because they're going, ooh, is that related in some way? This book follows Tyrese Walker, who is struggling with grief, and he goes on a trip to Jamaica to visit family, and whilst there, strange things start to happen, and he then has to go on a quest to try and get answers about what's happening and uncover the history of a sinister entity called the Shadow Man. This sounds utterly fantastic and I want to read it immediately. I think it's going to be right up my street. I'm already obsessed and I haven't even opened it yet. Also, this has been blurbed by Karine Gatton, who wrote When Life Gives You Mangoes. Absolutely love that book. Yvette Fielding, as in the author of this book, and Deirdre Sullivan, which I could be wrong, but I think... I can't remember what Deirdre Sullivan wrote, but Deirdre Sullivan is also a famous author. Anyway, I am probably rambling. So that is the books. I'm going to try and hold up all of the books, but I think this could go very, very wrong, so wish me luck. I'm not even going to try and hold up the samplers at the same time, because I will definitely cause chaos if I try and hold up the samplers. So, this is just the books that I bought. And then I don't have enough hands to... No. I tried and failed, clearly. I am now covered in books. Okay, so this has been a super long video. I have been recording for over an hour now. Hopefully this final video won't be anywhere near that length. However, just to end the video, I thought I would go through some of my favourite bits and bobs of swag or things that I purchased whilst I was down at YALC. So first off, we have the goodie bag that the first 500 weekend ticket holders received, apparently. And it is, ignore the pin badges because they're a different bit of swag. But I think it was mostly samplers we got inside this, and we got a programme. But we have this fun little branded tote bag. And then, as you can see, I've put all my pin badges on. So these are all the pin badges that I received whilst at YALC. I have a Mockingjay pin. That is a Skullduggery Pleasant pin. Her Majesty's Royal Coven. My Body, My Choice. A donut. Random. A pin for Nikita Gell's new Vogue, YALC, Chelsea High, which I can't off the top of my head think what book that's from, Electric Monkey, is that Simon YA? Yeah, that's Simon YA. Is that all of them? Yeah, that's all the pin badges. I did get another few tote bags, but probably my absolute favourite tote bag was from Hotkey Books, and it says, "If my book is open, your mouth should be closed." And not only do I like the slogan, I like the way it's constructed. Like, it's got a proper like gusset and everything, which is fabulous. So we already saw my Monk and Robot stickers that I love. I also have, and I'm sad because this snapped, so I need to try and figure out how to fix it. But I have a candle that apparently when you light it, it bleeds, which that sounds exactly my vibe. Totally random, but when they did the arcs for With Fire in Their Blood, they also gave you out roses. My stem snapped off, but I have a rose. Like, it's an actual rose, it's just dried out, that I got with my arc. These cute little stickers that Chicken House were doing for the other ones, which I think comes out in September. But I believe they have described it as Heartstopper meets Gossip Girl, maybe? It sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. They had quizzes to determine which of the characters from the other ones you are, and just generally was a good vibe. But I think these stickers are absolutely adorable. I've got this random signed print that I have no idea what it's from. So if anyone can tell me what fandom and author this print's from, I would very much appreciate that. That's cute. It's for Birthday by Meredith Russo, and they've designed it so it's like a birthday card. A postcard size print for Her Majesty's Royal Coven. A Skullduggery Pleasant print. So if you watched my previous video, you know that I chose to get a photo up with Hannah Murray. I hate myself in this picture, but a photo of me with Hannah Murray, clearly looking very hot and sweaty. A print for With Fire in Their Blood by Kat Delacour, and also it's signed. And as I was walking through the Comic-Con, I saw this print and I knew I had to have it. So we have Gengar, and this is by Kate Mia White, and I just think it's absolutely gorgeous, and I need more Pokemon prints like this. So I got to the end of filming and B came home and reminded me that I actually picked up a couple of things for him at the Comic-Con. They aren't bookish, but I quite like them and I want to kind of hype them up. Well, so the first thing was that I managed to pick up a Flocked Vulpix Funko Pop. Now, Ninetales is B's favourite Pokemon, so when I said that I'd found a Flocked Vulpix, he was absolutely, sorry if you hear noises, that's just B walking around the flat. He was absolutely obsessed and was like, please, please, please pick it up. So obviously I did, and he is utterly obsessed. And the second thing I picked up was this adorable, I'm so sorry, my softbox is reflecting off it. You can just about see. So it's this like Pokeball type thing, and it has a little Alolan, sorry, that's me corrected. This little Alolan Vulpix in. It has this beautiful blossom tree. It is absolutely gorgeous. It's hand painted, and it's by a company called Bespokemon, and the artist is Jamie Leo, and I just think it is absolutely gorgeous. It is so expertly done, and just love it to pieces.
No.
But it's not mine, it's Bee's. 100%. This is Bee's, as is the Funko Pop. So that is kind of my YALC haul. I did get other random bits and bobs of swag, but those are the things that kind of excited me most, and that's everything. So let me know in the comments what books sound interesting, what things that I got you liked, and just generally let's have a chat. And until next time, bye.
There's a place